Welcome back to another episode of Matthew Thompson, famous YouTuber. Now, first things first, do I make this video? It says, reply hazy, try again. Do I make this video? It says, ask again later. It's been about 5 seconds. Do I make this YouTube video? As I see it, yes. There we go. That's the answer we needed. All right, folks, we are doing a follow-up to my groundbreaking video from several months back, that being the Hunk Holiness Matrix. Now, a lot of you have been wondering,
Matt, when's your next YouTube video coming out?
and what I would say to that is, what inspired Michelangelo to paint the Sistine Chapel? What inspired Leonardo da Vinci to create the Mona Lisa? I'm sure there's many other artists we can think of too, but the point being is that great art cannot be rushed. It's an inspiration that comes from inside the creator and is then poured out onto the canvas. And the canvas is my refrigerator. So I have been cooking up what exactly would go into the counterpart to the Hunk Holiness Matrix over the past several months. And through a peer-reviewed process of my fellow friends, I have come up with what I believe will most accurately represent the counterpart to the Hunk Holiness Matrix. And so we are calling this the Honey Homemaker Matrix. Now, as per my usual whiteboard spelling videos, I'm going to need you to bear with me here. Yeah, we'll rip right into it though. Starting off, we have our two axes. We got our y-axis and our x-axis. On our y-axis, we have honey. On our x-axis, we have home. And if I could spell, you would say homemaker. There we go. Now, what are these two categories and why are they important? First, we have our honey category. Now, you might ask yourself, what is a honey? So a honey is someone who, many of you have probably heard of the hot crazy matrix. One trying to describe looks and the other trying to describe personality. And that's like somewhat accurate to a degree, but that was made like 15 years ago. It's somewhat archaic in its verbiage and understanding of how this actually works. And so honey is going to be a more fitting term for us. Now, in honey, it's still a attractiveness rating scale, but we can break that down into, say, 3 distinct items. So we have hot is still a part of it, but we also have pretty, and we have cute. Now, any guy knows, and probably most girls know, that there's a difference between someone who is pretty, cute, and or hot. You could be a combination of the 3, like there's some girls that are pretty and cute but not hot, or some girls are just hot but not pretty or cute, or some vice versa with a combination of that. But say in a hypothetical world you somehow possess all 3 of these traits like the Infinity Gauntlet, that's what makes you a honey. So honey, as you would imagine, would go from a scale of 1 to 10. Now, before I get into this video, some of you are probably wondering what gives me the authority to speak on this. Over my 29 years of existence, I've gathered wisdom and knowledge on this matter, but it's also important for me to say that I am an objective source on this matter, since I have chosen to partake in a life of celibacy, and thus I don't have a dog in this race per se. I'm just here reporting the information to you. So don't shoot the messenger. I'm just saying what I've learned from observing others over my 29 years on this earth. Love it or hate it. So anyways, that goes from 1, 5, 10. We'll throw like some other numbers on here. So like that's a 4, that's a 6. And so that's what makes someone a honey. Pretty simple. Then homemaker, this is what gets much more complicated. So what is a homemaker? Now, a homemaker is kind of a conglomeration of a lot of different traits that will help us to understand who and why we're pursuing someone. So in the homemaker tier, we got, guess what? Holiness. Now, many of you may be thinking like, Matt, isn't that the only category that we should be looking at? And you would think so, but through my knowledge and wisdom, I have come to understand that there's other things that we need to consider along with the honey scale in order to determine if there's someone we should pursue as a romantic interest. Going along with that, we also have what we will call hermit. Now, this doesn't mean that they live inside their house and never go outside, but what it does represent, because I want to keep my H theme going, is someone who has minimal online presence. So, you know, all the social medias that are out there, Instagram, Snap, Face, Tweetbook, VSCO, Venmo, TikTok, you name it. There's a lot of different social medias on there. And what I have found is that there tends to be a level of maturity that comes with someone who is not completely withdrawn, but has, we'll say, minimal or limited interaction with those online platforms. So that's what hermit stands for. Going along with that too, we have hospitality. Can she cook? Does she like to have people over? These are all things you want to ask yourselves, boys. And then lastly, we have parental instincts. Now the H is silent, so that's how I can keep my H theme going. But all these things are what kind of make a homemaker for us, we'll say. So now that we have our categories established, we can kind of create our matrix. So we're going to start off on this side again. So over here we have, so this is less than a 5 on the honeymaker scale, and she's less than a 4 honey. So this is what we call pull your hair out, annoying. These are the girls that, one, have very little redeeming traits to their personality, and thus you don't want to talk to them. But two, they aren't good looking enough that you're willing to put up with that either. So these are people that you want to just generally avoid at all costs in order to make sure that your own sanity stays in place. Now, that kind of brings us from a 4 to a 6. And so that is what we'll say are most girls. Now, most girls are between a 4 and a 6, which, lo and behold, most people are, we'll say, in the average. This doesn't mean that someone's unattractive. What it means is that they're in the average. All right? Again, don't shoot the messenger. There's plenty of people who can be perfectly happy with someone who's average. Anyways, most girls, now you might say, wouldn't most girls kind of be centered at the 5 then if we're taking the mean right here? What we have to realize though, however, is that based on a number of factors that we don't need to get into today, such as societal pressure, differing worldviews and other things, a lot of these things are somewhat, we'll say, rare to find. And so because of that, what used to be our average right here has kind of gone this way. That's an arrow towards here. So our average has moved to here, and thus we're in the category of most girls. Anyways, continuing on, we're actually going to hop to our Homemaker side above a 5 here. And so now we are above a 5 on the Homemaker scale, but we are less than a 5 on the Honey scale. This is your mom loves her tier. Now, I know my mom is watching this right now, so shout out to you, Mom. But these are the girls that, yeah, they're great, but you just you aren't feeling it, and I hate to say it, but if you aren't feeling it, you aren't feeling it. Doesn't that's just how life works. Again, don't shoot the messenger. So yeah, these are your girls that your mom loves. Maybe they're great to hang out with. Maybe you can go get Taco Bell or something together. But you aren't looking to take this person into a long-term romantic interest. Continuing forward though, we're gonna kind of hop back here real quick. So now we're above a 6 on that scale, but then we're gonna be less than a 9. These are the girls that we will call dangerously, it's supposed to be a U, dateable. Now, what do we mean by dangerously dateable? So when a girl is above a 6 on the attractiveness scale, that means that she's someone that will start to draw romantic interest as a guy. But because we are not cavemen and we're using our brains to figure out where we should go on this scale, her being less than a 5, we know we should not pursue this girl. But there's just something about the fact that she's above a 6 that, like a moth is drawn to a flame, we are drawn to the dangerously dateable girl. So this is where you start to compromise your morals. You don't worry about the fact that she's on Instagram 24/7. When she's taking that photo on your date, just so she can post it on Instagram, you don't think about that too much. We are, maybe we are cavemen. I don't know. But these are the girls that you should avoid, that you might have an initial draw to. So there you go. Going above that though, we have from 9 to 10. This is what we call our influencers. So these are people, girls in particular, who are attractive enough that they now have been able to make a career out of the fact that they're attractive by posting random content on the internet, most of which is irrelevant to anything meaningful, but since they're attractive, people pay attention to it. Not saying this is right, but this is just how life works. Now, the best thing about the influencer tier, though, is that it doesn't matter who you are as a guy, this girl's not going to give you the time of day, so we don't really have to worry about this tier. So it's like, she's not dangerously dateable, because she would never date you to begin with. So that's actually kind of reassuring in some ways. So, yeah, that brings us to this quadrant. And if you remember our last video, this is where we want to be. So now we're above a 5. Notice we're at a 5 here. And then we're going to say we're at a 7 right there. This is what we call the state of confusion. Now, the state of confusion is where a guy knows that a girl has a great personality, but he's not sure whether or not he's attracted to her enough in order to pursue the relationship. I know this sounds strange, but again, knuckle dragging cavemen sometimes don't fully understand what they're feeling. And so, because of that, say if a girl is in someone's eyes, a 5.2 is that's about where we're at there. He might not know exactly that's what she is. Maybe he's thinking, oh, is she right there where my mom loves her, or is she somewhere here where it's like, okay, maybe I could pursue this option. It's a really good question. And that's the thing that we got to realize about the honey tier. It's, we'll say, objective with some subjectivity. Now, this gets into the whole idea of types. Now, you've probably heard the term, well, she's just not my type, or he's just not my type, something like that. I think my inflection should have been changed there. Should have been, he's not my type, or she's not my type. Yeah, gotta make sure got that all lined up. Anyways, back to it. Point being is that someone, say like, there might be a nice girl here. We'll call her, I don't want to give names, but we may have Billy here. Billy says, I think that she is a 6. But then we have Tommy here. And Tommy might say, I think she's an 8. That's the subjectivity to it. Notice that we're kind of staying in a localized area, but there is a little subjectivity. Now, say if Johnny comes along and says, well, I think she's a 2, that's not how that works. Generally speaking, someone is within a general area and there's some, we'll say, taste preference to the palate to it. And so that's how the state of confusion comes in, because like these guys may not even know what they think. And then if there's some subjectivity to it, it's like, well, what are they actually thinking? You tell me. I don't even know what goes on in my own brain. That's why it took so long to put this YouTube video together. Anyways, outside of the state of confusion though, we get to the state of certainty. Now, if you've ever been hanging out with the boys and like sometimes boys will talk shop and debrief as to relationships and things like that, maybe a girl gets mentioned and then every guy goes, oh yeah, I'd date her. That's what we're talking about here. These are the girls that have enough homemaker qualities. They are holy. They don't have a huge online presence, so they aren't stuck up. They're kind of people. They have the parental instincts that you know, okay, this is someone you could spend the rest of your life with, but they also are attractive. And so it's like, okay, duh, everyone's going to be interested in that person. Now, what you got to realize is that when there is a girl who's in the state of certainty and you as a guy notice that, realize that every other guy is also in the state of certainty with her. So those are the girls that you see every guy going up to, talking to her, asking her out, and trying to get her number. This is where you just become another number to her as you're trying to get her number. Think on that for a while, and then it'll make sense to you. So the state of certainty, though, is where you're positive that you're interested in that person, but you have to realize that everyone else is also positive that they're interested in that person. So that's where it gets a little confusing and a little difficult. And that brings us to our final spot. So this was, we'll say, to about a 9. So like this is 7 to 9. We're in our state of certainty. From 5 to a 7, we were in our state of confusion. And now we come to our 9 to a 10, but above a 5 on the homemaker tier. This is what we will call the doesn't exist tier. Now this just isn't me being cynical. What we have to realize is that in order to be a 10 on the honey matrix, that means you've had to acquire not only hot but pretty and cute to such a degree that you are objectively a 10. Now, any 10 is peer reviewed by multiple other guys, and a consensus is reached that she is in fact a 10. Now, in order to get to that state, though, you do have to be self obsessed with your image to a degree that is not healthy and is probably dangerous and detrimental to your soul long term. Because of that, any girl who is acquiring the homemaker tier, say holiness, lack of social media presence, hospitality, parental instincts, there is a small sacrifice, say in beauty, to get to there. Now, that can be a very good thing. This is not the only thing we should be looking for, hence why we don't go to the dangerously dateable tier. But the point being is that in order to get more than a 5 homemaker, you have to give up the influencer lifestyle. Seems counterintuitive, but that's how it works. Anyways, so if you've been watching this video, you now know where you need to be. We want to be here in our state of confusion and state of certainty, and you can either choose to, 1, be like every other guy who's going after the state of certainty, or 2, maybe realize that the girl in the state of confusion is who you should have been dating this whole time. Now, I don't say this for me because I'm Sullivan Monk, as I once said, but this goes to all my other guys out there who are questioning where they're at. Anyways, I think that's going to about wrap this one up. If you disliked this video, please leave a vehement comment. Vehement? I don't know how you say that. But I did ask my 8-ball if I should make this video, and so that was the blessing I received before you leave me any angry comments. Yeah, outside of that, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos coming up at some point in the near future. Near is also relative, so I can mold that to be whatever I want. And then we'll continue to grow this channel up to 10 million subscribers, and then we'll all be famous and happy. That's it, folks. Take care.